Welcome to the Piece by Piece Autism Podcast with your hosts, Angie and Christy. They've worked 25 years to help Alec get the most out of life. Let them tell you how they're doing it.
Hi, and welcome back to Piece by Piece Autism Podcast. We're super excited to discuss with you guys today a bit of Alec's employment journey. As a reminder, Alec is 27 years old. He lives in a group home and is Christy's youngest son. And we are borderline obsessed, wouldn't you say?
Borderline. I would say we're fully obsessed.
I know.
We adore him. He's so cute.
We love Alec, and we love all that he has done in his own personal journey to find employment and to be employed and to contribute to society. And we kind of want to share with you part one of what we're going to talk about today is landing the job. And then we will also be sharing with you a part two as we discuss steps once you secure work and how to kind of make that the best opportunity, learning, and successful journey that it can be for your child as well. So prepare to become employed is kind of our first step. So as we have prepared Alec for work over the years, a lot of this has come from his practical work in learning and becoming independent in chores. And things like Alec wiping windows, spraying and wiping tables really led him to being his most independent self in getting a job at a restaurant. Part of his chores are wiping his own table, wiping the counter, wiping windows. All of those things are practiced at home and really transitioned well to that. We do a lot of setup and mock work at home or in his learning environment and would encourage you to do the same for your learner as we practice these things. Another example of that is dishes, loading dishes into a dishwasher. Alec had his own set of dishes separate from the family growing up. It's not like he was loading y'all's dishes from your spaghetti dinner necessarily.
Fine china. Yeah, we didn't let him near the fine china. Not that we had any.
Well, but
you know what I mean.
Yeah, that
he had the Corelle.
Yeah, the Corelle dishes that, you know, if you dropped them on the floor, they weren't going to shatter into a million pieces.
We always practiced that as a kid. We would say, "Hey, Mom said these won't break. Just throw these on the ground and see. They really won't."
You tested. They're the tried and true.
I never saw a Corelle break. So
hey, not to Corelle, but yeah, we want to set up these mock work environments at home and allow that practice. Mirror items as much as you can, the same as what you would see in a work environment. Are we having silverware in a basket to place on a table? Can we set that kind of environment up at home and practice placement? You know, where in the table is this going to be set? And allow for that learning and practice to continue at home so that when the time comes for employment, your child's ready.
We have a lot of, we don't have a lot, but we have a few. Okay, let's be honest. We have a few tools to support our work. One of the things that has been super helpful is the laser pointer. Don't blind anybody with it, but keep one in your backpack.
Well,
and if you haven't listened to the backpack episode, listen to the backpack episode.
We have a favorite laser. We have a very favorite one that we will link for you. But
yes,
we for whatever reason did not have a plethora of these when we needed them. And so I think we ordered some on Amazon.
They're terrible.
We kind of got in a little bit of trouble because it was so bright.
Yes.
It was blinding. It was blinding. Yeah. And so at one of Alec's job placements not too long ago, he was wiping tables and somebody looked over and was like, "You were going to blind me with that laser." And we're like, okay, we need to go back to our tried and true.
We didn't mean to. Didn't mean to blind you, in all fairness. But we did, I just did a deep dive and found it at Office Depot, I think, or the other one, Staples.
Yeah.
But we'll link it for you because it is the absolute best one. I don't think I was super happy with the price of it. It might have been like $20 or more just for
Yeah.
one laser pointer. And I had to buy like three because we use them all over the place.
Yeah.
They're so good. They're so good. And also we use the clicker because if he understands what the clicker is, it's being paired with a reinforcer. Earlier on in life, he understood what the clicker meant. The clicker meant I'm doing this right, keep moving.
Mm-hmm.
It was a way to just keep the flow of the chore or whatever the task that he was doing. And so that would be in his backpack
Mm-hmm.
during different points. And we used a laser pointer. Well, the way that we would apply that is that we had square tables like at El Phoenix where he worked in Dallas, and we're super picky about how the table is cleaned. We
Mm-hmm.
want the entire table cleaned. And so he's cleaning off these funny vinyl tablecloths or whatever they were, the
Yeah.
toppers that go on the table. And we wanted him to get to the corners. So we would just shine the laser pointer to the corner and he would have to wipe the laser pointer off. And so that really worked to teach him the particulars of that.
As we've done that over and over, we were able to fade the laser because we would get into a rhythm of left corner,
Yes.
right corner, bottom right, or bottom left. And as you started to do that at each table, that became then the routine of how he wiped, which eliminated the need for the laser over time. So
Right.
it's a great
Yeah.
tool and can be faded as needed, but also used in so many ways. It's just great to have.
He also did volunteer work. Now, don't ever underestimate what volunteer work can provide because sometimes you can't get a job readily. We'll talk about that later, but he worked at a free grocery store at one point, stocking shelves. And there's a lot of skills to be had at a grocery store, so or to be acquired. He loaded fridges in the back. That was probably his favorite thing because he got to put on big gloves and a big coat.
Mm-hmm.
And he was working with his friend, and they got to go in and put things into the fridge and the freezer. And then he got to break down boxes. Not sure he loved that. Um, and the next thing we want to talk about is like where do you get a job? And this is probably the hardest part of the whole thing.
Yeah.
And that is, we just struggled and struggled with this. In Dallas, it was who did we know? Who were the friends? Who were the community? Who do we know?
Yeah.
And
Connection.
yeah, one of the one of our great connections was Angie's brother Mark, who is a good friend of Alec. He's a typical guy, typical peer, and he had a job at a little toy factory. It was making airsoft guns or storing them or something. And so he got to go to this warehouse with Mark, and they put them into boxes and sealed them up and put them in stacks. And so Alec is very brawny, and so he can pick up big stacks. I've got this one picture of him carrying about probably 15 boxes of these little airsoft guns, and he's walking along very proudly holding that. And then my son, my other son, was thinking about, what job could Alec have? And he talked to one of his friends in high school and he asked, "Hey, don't you have some restaurants in town?" And this family had quite a number of restaurants in town and were just so generous in letting Alec come join El Phoenix as one of their, what would you call him? What was the name of that job? Like it's kind of a busboy, but it was more of a restaurant prep job.
Yeah, I would say restaurant prep. They allowed him to come
Restaurant
in
prep.
prior to opening and really get the restaurant ready to be opened. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And in Colorado, it was his connection through his adult day program
mhm.
that provided him with some jobs. He had some good variety there of being able to sample some jobs. And I don't think any one of those jobs was a paid job. And finding the paid jobs are very difficult, but doable, but
Yes.
achievable. So
Yes.
don't get discouraged. Just got to keep working on it.
Yeah. All right. Next, we're wanting to discuss the resume. Obviously, we need a document to be prepared so that you can upload that as you apply for jobs. Alec's resume includes, of course, the most adorable picture of him working at El Phoenix, which was one of his favorite jobs, and one that he had first off when he was younger. I think it was his very first paid job. Is that right?
Yes, it was his first paid job.
Yeah.
Yes.
And as we discussed, all of the volunteer work and all of those opportunities are great. And that's where he was able to pull his experience from to put on his resume. He has everything from all of his jobs that he worked in Colorado as part of the adult day program, things like work on the farm where he watered the garden and fed the chickens and cleaned the milk jugs. Like all of that is listed as job experience on his resume. Even though it was volunteer work, it's those experiences that really gave him those skill sets and allowed for his resume to be as robust as it is. It also notes to say, obviously, Alec is not taking callbacks. So on his resume, we've got my contact information with care of his parent or job coach or whoever that person would be, so that when they're contacting and calling us back, they knew that, they may not be talking directly with Alec, but would be discussing employment opportunities for him with another individual. So that may be something to note as you prepare this document for your child. We did a lot of preparation with Alec ahead of time as we were starting to kind of really hit the ground running. Alec had expressed interest in a paid position, and at a certain point in his life, after as much volunteer work as he had provided and as he built confidence in his own skills, really felt like, hey, I can contribute enough to get paid. And that was important. So Christy, do you want to talk about social story aspect or ways that we prepared Alec for the steps of the actual application to get a job?
Sure. We use social stories across the board a lot to
Yeah.
be able to really prepare him for things that he would be facing. If that was even going to the grocery store or what his schedule was for the day, up to and including getting a job. What's this going to be like? Because it can be intimidating for a typical young adult to go to a job interview. Of course, it's something totally new to him. So it's nice to be able to say, you're going to put on these nice clothes. We're going to wear more like our Sunday best for a job interview. We're going to, we don't love to shake hands, but we're going to try to give a handshake and we're going to give some eye contact. We did a lot to train eye contact as Alec was growing up, and he is not perfect at it, of course, but he does give a little flash of an eye contact, and it's really nice. It's really gratifying when he does that. It's important to think ahead of things like you're going to need to ask them a question. If you're in a job interview, it's so nice when the person interviewing you says, "And what questions do you have for me?" So we thought those things out ahead of time and had those prepared so that he could ask the question. And he, of course, has his letter board to communicate. So we alerted the person interviewing him ahead of time. He doesn't speak, but he uses a letter board, so it'll take him a little bit longer. And we had just the nicest, most patient people who were interviewing him. So that was good that they
Yeah.
worked with us and just made a pleasant experience. I mean, the whole El Phoenix experience, I just could not be happier about. The man who was one of his managers, he had several managers during the course of the time he was working there because he was there over 2 years.
Hmm.
And one of his last managers had a son on the autism spectrum. And so he really understood what we were up against and would really appreciate all of Alec's efforts. But we did applying for jobs. Now that was heart-wrenching,
Yes, yes.
to say the least.
This is where we ran into quite a bit of what am I trying to say? Like we felt led on.
Resistance.
We felt led on in a lot of these
Yes,
applications. I think
yeah.
that's what I'm trying to say is we would apply
Yeah,
for these
because
jobs. We had
yeah,
great experience with interviews. We met some wonderful
yeah,
people who were patient with Alec, and it was like, wow, we left that. Alec
yes,
rocked it. He looked good. He gave his
yes.
best. He was really patient. We had all of our ducks in a row walking in, and
Right.
then the call never came, or the follow up never happened. Or we would
Yes.
have to call back and check in, and it was like, oh, yeah, that was great. But
Oh, I'm still checking with the upper
mhm,
management and blah, 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 and just let us on, let us on, let us on.
yeah.
No answer.
So we kind of took this on really heavy at one point with our team that was working with Alec at the time and challenged them to really reach out and find connections or, when you're with Alec, what kind of things is he looking at? He had applied from movie theaters, Home Depot, tons of restaurants around town. They had friends with different connections that we were looking into. And I think because we hit it so hard, we kind of drug Alec through some mud at the time. Um,
Yeah.
and he finally was
Well, we
like,
kept thinking it was right around the corner, though,
yeah,
Andrew,
yeah.
really. We kept thinking, oh, this one is going to work out. He's going to get this Provo Rec job. I remember that was one of the ones that
Yeah.
had a lot of potential. And then the applying for jobs just became really too much for Alec. And we decided he actually mandate or requested for a break in the job search. And that was really heartbreaking to
Hmm.
think that this is a guy who is capable. He has some skills. He's got a adorable resume and it has several jobs on it, but he can't seem to find someone willing to give him a job. So he actually asked for a break.
Yeah.
And we honored that and said, yeah, we can see that this is causing you a bit of frustration and actually a bit of depression. So we pulled back and just said, okay, we're going to wait.
Yeah.
And so
Now that we're in discussions of a job or we've had the opportunity to meet with potential employers, what would you say the process is with that time with the interview and interactions with setting him up for success at a potential new job?
whenever you get to the point that you're at the interview and you're looking at the job, let's say his job at El Phoenix, we we asked for a tour of the facility because we wanted to be very familiar with what the routines are
Hmm.
within the job that we could preset, maybe help him at home to be able to figure these things out and to kind of get a system. At El Phoenix, he had a clock in and clock out routine, which included a little card where he had to do a check in on a screen. And so we worked on that to where we could get part of that independent. Then we looked at what is his required uniform. In the restaurants, he usually has to wear special non-skid shoes, and we most certainly got those for him. They're just so inexpensive at Walmart, I think is where we get them.
Hmm.
And then does he have to wear a hat? For him, he had a lot of the sensory issues with wearing a hat, and so we worked on that in a lot of different ways to uh, desensitize him so that he could actually wear a hat. And now he'll sometimes choose to wear a hat
Hmm.
during the day.
Yeah.
It's nice. and his hair is thinning a bit. And so he wore a bucket hat like 2 weeks ago, quite consistently every day when he was out in the sun. And it was nice to see the growth that's happened.
Yeah, now that it's not at all an issue. But I just think being aware or asking at the time of the interview, like what are the requirements? Is there anything
Yeah.
potentially going to be a hurdle for your child? Whether that is like, I think about at El Phoenix, we parked in the back and walked through, because they were not open at the time that Alec worked, we walked through the back kitchen and we were walking next to them as they were preparing food, which meant, we needed to be dressed for that. And also, we were aware that Alec wasn't going to jump in front of the the hot pot or anything, but we made sure to walk a certain way into where he was then working. But are there other potential problems or distractions or pitfalls that would deter you from your child working there? Just knowing those things at the time of interview, I think, is important.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I remember that was a problem there and being able to set routines is that the items that he needed to complete his job were not always in the spot that we expected them to be in.
Yes.
They said the little red bucket that's got the sanitary,
Yep.
Cloth or whatever was not always there. So we had to go hunting for that. So, and we weren't able to get there early and set it up for him so that it was perfectly set up. So there were roadblocks like sometimes every time he came.
Yeah.
Like, where's the little red bucket? Is there a clean cloth? And then we would go back to fill up the sanitation
Solution.
fluid.
Yeah.
And solution. Yeah, solution's a better word. And the lady would be there chopping something right in front of where we had to be. So there were a lot of new things that he learned and a lot of ways that he learned to work around the people that were there. And that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
The coordination of all that.
Yeah. Which is a lot more what we want to talk about in part 2 is we've had all these experiences with them. How have we overcome those kinds of things? So lots of opportunities for growth and learning.
Yeah.
So over the years, as Alec has looked for employment and had many opportunities for employment, we have also hit several roadblocks and just wanted to kind of be transparent about what those are and make sure you are aware of these pitfalls as well. One of the biggest issues for Alec is that he is nonverbal. He has epilepsy and requires a job coach to be with him. And even though with his setup that he has now with the group home and a caretaker with him around the clock, we're saying, hey, we're going to bring in its job coach. Well, a lot of the companies, these bigger companies, are saying, ooh, yeah, that's actually a liability. So no, thank you.
Right.
He can't perform the job independently. We cannot employ him, is really what we got over and over and over again.
Well, and I think their issue is they're saying in our company, our employees are insured, but you're bringing in your employee. So the job coach is either being paid through a private individual or an insurance company, however your job coach is paid for through a waiver or whatever. And so that person is employed by a different entity. And your son is going to be employed by me, but that job coach then would not be covered by our like liability clause or whatever it is. I don't know insurance speak, but something like that. So we heard that over and over and over.
Or the job coach would also have to be employed by this big company, but then how do we make that work with the schedule and turnover of our employees as, they come and go with anyways, that was a huge one. That was a huge one. So another was some time restraint. Alec was actually offered a job at a restaurant and we were super excited about this. This was pre-COVID. But they were not willing to have him just come in for a time that would be conducive for him to get settled and familiar with the environment. They wanted him on a Friday night at the busiest time of a restaurant, and they needed him there for like a 6-hour shift. And that was what they could offer him, or nothing. And it was kind of disheartening because it was a great opportunity, but we're really having to work up to the stamina of working 1, 2, 3 hours at a job. And so Alec has some time restraints. His focus and ability to like stay on task for that long just wasn't in his wheelhouse. And unfortunately, we weren't able to really get things going with this job as much as we really, really wanted to, but they weren't willing to budge on his time restraints. So that was another roadblock. Like I mentioned, his health limitations and seizures for Alec. He has a job coach, but we've had a seizure or two on the job. Unfortunately.
Yes, we have.
They're always an experience.
I mean, seizures aren't funny, but sometimes we've had some funny things happen.
We laugh so we don't cry, right?
That's what it is. That's what it is. Well, okay. So at El Phoenix, we keep talking about El Phoenix, but it's one of our favorite jobs.
Oh, yeah.
His longest running job to date. So we got a lot of experiences from there. But the unique thing about that job, and I encourage everybody to try to find a job like this for your special needs child, if you can, for the first experiences, that he would come in before the restaurant would open, which was so nice. Like 1 hour before he is there setting up the restaurant. So we're there setting up the restaurant, and all of a sudden he starts gazing, and I'm like, oh no, oh my gosh, what? And he starts having a seizure right in the middle of his section.
Right.
And when he does that, it's a grandma seizure, and it's take him down to the floor before he hits his head or something. And we just had to pop a napkin under his head. I don't remember how we shielded his head, but we figured out a way to do that. And he sat there and had a seizure. We gave him his medication for it. And then what do we do with his body?
Yeah, he's knocked out, exhausted.
He's knocked out, and he's in the middle of his section. And that restaurant opened with him laying on the ground. We're trying to get him up. It was kind of funny, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
Like,
they're seating everybody at different sections, and they were so kind and so understanding.
They were so patient.
Yes.
And they were like trying to help us get him up, but he does get knocked out. So we have to kind of, I mean, it makes him very relaxed to have the medication. And after the seizure, he's so exhausted that we had to just get his body up somehow and get him out so that we could get him into the car. But El Phoenix was clean that day. Our section looked great. There was just a body laying in the center of it for, a short period of time of the opening.
Yeah.
But then we got him out, and he was fine. He's fine. So
well, that is one of Al's health limitations, and just obviously you know what your child's health limitations if they have them. So right. And then, like we mentioned earlier, the depression and rejection aspect of finding a job can be difficult. So after that experience with Alec and our team, and as we were like so gung-ho, we're going to grab this job for Alec and this is going to be great, we really did have to take a step back. And moving forward, our team has been involved. Obviously, Christy and I heavily involved in job placement moving forward, but we kind of went ahead and did quite a bit of the legwork ahead of time. So just know your child's limits and what they mentally can handle and what they're willing to give. And don't push them past that. And I don't know that we necessarily pushed Alec past that. He was able to communicate and say, whoa, I kind of am feeling a little bit of rejection here. This isn't fun. Can we take a break? And of course, like Christy said, we honored that. But just be aware that as cute as these guys are and as much as they have to offer, they're still going to be told no. And that's
and I think it was just that we kept thinking it was around the corner, like I said earlier. And so if you keep thinking, oh, this next one, we're pretty sure this is going to work out. And then that didn't work out. And we did have a consultant that came in who's an old friend of ours that said, you know, focus more on the volunteer work. But like we said earlier, it's an important component for Alec that he gets paid for the job. That's important to him, and he values that. So we have to also honor that if we can. I was going to say also, I think it's really inspiring these parents that are starting businesses so that their children can work in them.
Yeah.
And so that other people with special needs can work in them. And I heard recently about a guy that started a car wash, and it's a great business because there's so many different little jobs in that
Right.
someone with special needs could have. I mean, so there's things out there, there's things you can do. That was too big of an undertaking for me to think about.
Yeah, no, for sure.
But I really admire people that do that.
Yeah. Job placements for these capable individuals are out there, but they can be hard to come by. So, as a reminder, we've discussed preparing to become employed. What can you do at home? How can you set up a learning environment to practice? What tools do you have to support volunteer work? Where are these potential job placements going to be? And then working on your resume and kind of preparation for what does an interview look like? What can we prepare ahead of time? What do you want to send? What message do you want to send as you go in and interview? And then the actual applying for jobs. Where are you going to look for work? And what does that interview and routine look like once you get there? And then potential roadblocks, just knowing your child's limitations, restraints, health limitations, whatever they may be, and know going into it that there may be some roadblocks, but there are opportunities out there, and these individuals have so much to offer. And as they build this confidence and find success in the work placements, it is worth it. It's worth the roadblocks. We can confidently say that Alec is happily employed. He's making progress and has meaningful connections and friendships through employment that he currently is in. And so power through. You can do it. And
yes,
know that we will discuss in part 2 best practices at the job site. So what happens when you land the job? We'll talk more about that next time. Well, that's it for this episode of Piece by Piece. Thank you so much for being part of the conversation. We are sure glad that you're here. If this episode made you think, laugh, or feel a little more seen, go ahead and follow the show, share it with a friend, and help us keep the dialogue growing. If you've got a story, a question, or something on your heart, we would love to hear it. Find us on Instagram and Facebook at Piece by Piece Autism Podcast. That's PIECE, Piece by Piece Autism Podcast. Until next time, take care and keep putting the pieces together. Bye.
Bye.